All right, and welcome back to the Betting Pros podcast. Believe it or not, but it's already the week of the 4th of July. So cue the Toby Keith, throw those hot dogs on the grill, and get some baseball on the tube. And yes, we're back before the holiday to revisit the MLB futures betting markets. I'm your host, Seth Woolcock, and I'm joined by quite the cast of characters today, including a man who bleeds red, white, and blue. He's the host of Leading Off. He's Chris Welsh. Pal, how you doing? Are you looking forward to the holiday weekend?
We're doing solid. I got birthdays. I got a daughter and a wife that both share the same birthday on July 5th. So we do 4th of July for me is not just about America, but it's about family, literally, because my daughter has taken over that day. But I'm looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward to baseball being center stage for a little bit, because that is what you all got. And you're all going to deal with it, whether you like it or not. It's a dad in me.
We also have back with us a man who I believe already celebrated his Independence Day up north, Canadian Joe Orrico. Joe, did I get that right? Canada Day already in the bag for you?
By the time people are hearing this, it likely will be, but it's actually, at the time of recording, it is the 1st of July. It's Canada Day today. So happy Canada Day to all the Canadians who are listening. It's odd being a Canadian who works for American companies because I'm working today, but I'll get the long weekend like you guys will, so it's hard to really complain all that much.
There you go. Hardworking Canadian Joe Orrico. Well, we appreciate you being back with us. Today on the program, it looks like this. We'll revisit the following betting markets: MVP, Cy Young, season win totals, and to make the playoffs, some division winners, World Series winners, and our favorite long shot futures as well. And we'll also be discussing the looming MLB Trade Deadline, how it could affect these markets coming up. And before we get going, first wanted to shout out everyone who's joining us either on the Betting Pros YouTube channel or the audio feed. The easiest way to support us is to always give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy this type of content. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new. And while you're here, let us know down in the comments below your favorite MLB futures that we should be jumping on right now, and maybe even your favorite hot dog condiments. I'm usually like a cheese dog with ketchup and onion kind of guy, but I also kind of roll with the sauerkraut action a little bit here and there. What about you, Welsh?
Hardcore pass on the sauerkraut. So, nothing is more American to me than chips. It's chips. Give me Doritos, give me Ruffles. Just like, let me consume the chips, please.
On your hot dog?
Oh, on hot dog. I thought we were just talking about, you know what? Also, yes, I thought you said food in general. On a hot dog, very anti-Chicago. It's all ketchup. But you know what? I might throw a couple chips on there, a couple Doritos in there. Don't try me.
I honestly want to try the Chicago dog from Chicago. I haven't done it yet. I think having that in Wrigley would be pretty cool. What about you, Joe? Where do you go with the hot dogs?
If I'm feeling adventurous, maybe get a little chili cheese action going on. I know I'm going to pay for it. I'm going to pay for it the next day probably, because that's going to ruin my stomach. But chili and cheese is a nice combo. But if I'm just having a regular hot dog or sausage, usually a little bit of honey mustard, a little bit of ketchup, maybe a little bit of hot take, but maybe some just regular cheese on a hot dog, like a slice of cheese. I don't know how common that is, but I'm all for it.
No maple syrup.
No maple syrup, no beaver tails, none of that Canadian style hot dogs over here.
All right, let's go ahead and jump in here. Let's start with the MVP odds, where in the AL, it's really become a two-horse race between Aaron Judge minus 900 and Cal Raleigh, big dumper plus 600. And then over in the NL, it's really Shohei Ohtani minus 1,000, and then everybody else. With this said, Welsh, are there any surging players that you're maybe starting to believe have a shot at making a trip to the podium for the sword?
I don't love this market at all. And I'll tell you, I think this market solely depends on an injury. And that's it. I think is Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani, and everything else is just speculation. So you start to play the speculation. Orrico, I think, is very smart in what he's going to take. He's going to be taking the next guy up. My take is a little bit different. So I'm again, there's risk in here taking anybody besides the favorites, because it literally is going to bank on injury. But Cal Raleigh is number 2 in the AL. But jumping out is this wide gap to number 3, and it's Tarik Skubal. And I'm going to throw Tarik Skubal at you just as a little aside here, because his odds are plus 9,000. Plus 9,000. Huge number, obviously, because he's a pitcher. But the reason I think it's in play is, let's go to what I said. we have to assume that Aaron Judge is going to get hurt. That's the only way that either one of these bets makes sense. As fun as Cal Raleigh is, and we're seeing from a WAR perspective, he's number 2. Cal Raleigh is number 2 in baseball, and I know Joe's going to talk about that. Like, it's all great. I just don't think there is a scenario where Cal Raleigh is going to take this, unless, let's just say, without an injury, Aaron Judge tapers back for 2 months. All of a sudden, Cal just goes on to another step, and then the Mariners are taking the division and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that. But here's the scenario. Aaron Judge gets hurt. Then it's Cal Raleigh jumps to your favorite. But what if the Mariners start to backtrack? What if Cal Raleigh has been more of a common like 230, 240 type of hitter? What if he takes a backtrack in the second half of the season and the Mariners start to tank? You're not going to give the MVP to a team that doesn't get into the playoffs. Well, what's the next step up? How about the pitcher with the number 1 WAR in baseball, almost a full point more higher than the next guy, Garrett Crochet, in Tarik Skubal with a 4.3, which is only a couple little small notches away from Cal Raleigh. And how about the best record in baseball? And how about the Tigers getting there is an element of what the team is going to do here and their accolades. And that's what Tarik Skubal has. He has 17 games under his belt and he has 10 wins. What if he drops another 10 and gets a 20-win guy with a WAR that is as high or higher than Cal Raleigh, has a low 2 ERA, he has a 2.15 ERA right now, is near the tippy top of the league in strikeouts? I think you're going to have to look at a team with the most wins in baseball, if he has 20 plus wins, and if a guy like Aaron Judge is out, that we could see a pitcher take that award in this case. And I just think from an odds perspective, I don't see the crazy value in getting 7-1 on Cal Raleigh right now, but how about 90-1? For something that is very plausible under this scenario that we have to build to bet anybody besides Aaron Judge. So I move away from this market a little bit, but that's where I might try to, have some speculative fun.
Joe, what are your thoughts on the MVP markets? Is Cal Raleigh a guy that we should be getting invested with? Because it felt like a couple months ago, no one really knew if this was for real. It feels like he is here to stay, but I saw an interview with him earlier this week and he was saying, I didn't think this was coming. Like, I actually had a pretty bad spring training leading up to this. So do you think it's legit, and would you be investing some of your unit allocation into the Seattle Mariners catcher?
I would, yeah. And it's funny when you go back and look at spring training. He hit 186. He had a 30% strikeout rate. It's funny because there are certain players that pop in spring and then flop in the regular season and vice versa. But Cal Raleigh is having one of the best seasons we've ever seen from a catcher. I don't even think that's hyperbolic. 33 home runs at this point of the year. I forget who it was, MLB Network or somebody posted a graphic of most home runs at this point of the season, and the company he's with is Bonds, it's Sosa, it's McGuire, it's Ken Griffey Jr. It's pretty phenomenal stuff. A lot of it does probably hinge on Aaron Judge missing some time or going through a horrible slump, but I think you can kind of spin a narrative of Cal Raleigh having an elite offensive season. He's taken a bit of a step back in terms of his defensive metrics, but he's still grading out very positively. He's not quite the best catcher in the American League anymore necessarily, but still a solid defensive catcher to go along with what will probably be a 50-plus home run campaign from behind the dish, and we've never seen that before. So I think there is a pathway for him to get some MVP love, especially because Judge has won it a couple times. The Mariners and Yankees are only separated by 4 wins in the standings. The Yankees have kind of cooled off a little bit, so there is a chance that the Mariners finish with a better record. Don't know how likely that is necessarily, but I think Cal Raleigh does make sense as a sprinkle at the very least. Catchers don't usually get a lot of love in this category. You don't usually see catchers winning MVP. There's a couple examples in this century, Joe Mauer, Buster Posey, but it doesn't happen very often. But this is the type of season that could very well be rewarded with an MVP. The batting average, I think, is pretty stable. He's made a lot of improvements at the dish. He only has a 276 BABIP, so he's not getting lucky in that sense. I think he can maintain somewhere in the 270s. And if he gets over 50 home runs and finishes with 8+ WAR, and he's trending well in that direction, he's got 5.6 already. Rest of season projections have him between 2.5 and 3.5 additional WAR. We could be looking at a 9-win season from a catcher. And at that point, we could see the voters having some trouble not voting for him at the end of the day, assuming the records end up pretty close between the Mariners and the Yankees.
Yeah, Cal Raleigh will be in the home run derby, so we'll get to see him and his power on full display here very, very soon. Moving to the Cy Young market in the AL, It is Skubal, who's still the favorite, minus 190 currently. Garrett Crochet floating right around plus 750 at most books. Hunter Brown, 13-1. Max Fried, 13-1. And then your guy, Jacob deGrom at 13-1 as well, Orrico. Everyone else is higher odds than 60-1. In the NL, Paul Skeens, he has moved to minus money, minus 170 as the favorite. Zach Wheeler is closing, though. I know, Welsh, I think you grabbed him, 11-1 at one point a couple months ago?
Yeah, we did that on the show a couple months ago. 11-1.
Yeah, all the way down to plus 360 now. So you definitely have some nice closing line value there. Same question for you, Chris. Are there any surging players that we should be considering to get invested with in the Cy Young, whether that's the AL or the NL, or is it just, hey, let's stick with the tickets we have? I think you have a Paul Skeens as well ticket, so you're probably good in the NL. And Skubal, even minus 190 feels bettable, especially maybe as a leg to a parlay or something.
So if you're asking, like, would I stand pat? Yeah, I would stand pat. I have incredible value on Wheeler. I think I got plus money value on Paul Skeens. I think those work well. I think there's no value in the AL market. There's nothing. I mean, Skubal is going to run away with this. So if I'm doing anything, it's not there. It would be in the NL. Now, if you can get at least 3-1 on Zach Wheeler, I think that's still kind of fun. He's rocking. Paul Skeens, it's going to have a really rough time, though. The guy is he going to get to 10 wins? I think I don't think we saw a starting pitcher ever win the Cy Young without at least 10 wins. So that's going to be something to watch. I'm going to take this just like I did with the MVP market, in that I think things have to happen. There's only one place to bet. It's in the NL. And between Skeens and Wheeler, I don't think there's a lot of value, but the next guy, there's a huge jump in value to Logan Webb, who is 20-1. He's plus 2,000 right now, and he is 0.01 WAR away from Crochet. He's less than a full WAR point from Skubal, so he's technically the highest WAR of any pitcher in the NL right now. They added offensive support. It's a pitcher-friendly environment. He's got a 2.6 ERA with an xFIP that's lower. So if he keeps going on the season, the Giants start to take a run and they get into the wild card, or maybe somehow they take the division and it's behind Logan Webb and he can get to 16 or 17 wins. He's already a high WAR pitcher, and you're getting 20-1 odds in a market that's got multiple, that has no pitcher that's minus 10,000 or anything like that. You've got an open market of Skeens and Wheeler. I think Webb, if I were to speculate, is where I would go, simply based on odds and the numbers. But if you're asking me as a whole, I'm probably staying away because I've already got tickets that, have really great returns right now.
If someone isn't invested in Skubal already, would you be comfortable drinking the juice that is the minus 190 line?
Yeah. I mean, like, okay. Skubal is that what it is? I thought I saw it like at a massively bigger number.
I've seen it minus 190 I've seen a variety of books have it different places. I've seen minus 300, but minus 190 is out there. I can get you confirmation on what book that is, but
if it's a parlay piece or that, yeah, sure. I mean, I'm talking about him being MVP at this point. Like, he's going to run away with that, like Judge. It's only going to be due to injury. That's the only thing that's taking Skubal away from that right now. So, yeah, I mean, minus one, I don't usually bet those, but minus 190 would be interesting. I like your idea of like a parlay piece if you could still do it, but that would be probably the only interest. That's why the only other things I'm looking at are high odds with some return probability. And I think that really at this point in the entire Cy Young market is only Logan Webb.
Joe, are you seeing any value floating out there in the Cy Young market? And what's your take on Logan Webb here as well, 20-1?
I think Logan Webb is fantastic. I just don't know if he is necessarily the guy that the voters are going to go for here. I think if I'm going to be betting it, and Welsh got this number earlier in the year, and kudos to him because he has a better line on this, but I think Zach Wheeler still makes the most sense at 3.5-1. You might be able to see 4-1 depending on your books. Definitely shop around there. But he is a 2-time runner-up. He's finished second in Cy Young voting twice. If you're looking at baseball reference WAR, which I'm not the biggest fan of, I prefer Fangraphs, but some voters will look at BREF, and he is leading all pitchers in the majors in WAR this season. If you're looking at the National League specifically, just in terms of his FIP, his Sierra, he is right at the top of those leaderboards with names like Logan Webb and Paul Skeens, and I think that all of them do have a bit of a chance to win the award, but I think Skeens being such a favorite doesn't make a lot of sense to me, partly because of what Welsh said. 4 wins in 17 starts. The Pirates are going to be sellers most likely at the deadline. We'll talk about that more later.
Sure.
How many more games is this Scene's going to win this year? Is he going to finish with 7, 8 wins? Like, I don't really see him getting to double digits, and that'll probably hold him back. So seeing him at minus money doesn't make a ton of sense to me. I think Zach Wheeler is really the favorite here. He should be the favorite just based on what we've seen from him this year. 27% strikeout minus walk rate. His ERA is 2.27. He has a 0.91 whip. He's right in line with where Skeens is, except he has a much better team that he's pitching for, where he will end up with probably, 13 or 14 wins. He's already got 8, so maybe even 16, 17 in a best case scenario. That seems like the better play to me. Even though that the odds were better earlier in the year, you're still getting plus money on a guy who I believe should probably be the favorite for this award as of today.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all. And man, it's been such a tough summer in Pittsburgh. Like, I have friends who are diehard Pirates fans. They had season tickets or the pass before this year, and they're not going anymore. People aren't going down to PNC, one of the most beautiful ballparks in the entire major league. So disappointing to see. But over under, Paul Skeens gets traded in the next 12 months. Welsh, what would you put the line?
I mean, like percentages, I would 0%, 0%.
Okay.
0% ever that Paul Skeens get traded. I think the Pirates would treat Paul Skeens like the Angels treated Shohei Ohtani. They would do everything they possibly
just go down with the ship.
To go down with the ship. And so, I mean, I'll say the odds are better in 5 years. If he doesn't agree to some arbitrational, like big contract or whatever, and he tries to keep going and they know they can't do it, there's your probability. The next 36 months, I say it is 0.5%.
It'll happen eventually, though, I think. Like, they traded Glass now. They got rid of Cole. Like, I think eventually it will happen.
But none of those guys were, like, the face of the organization. Like, Paul Skeens is, like, he's a whole different breed. I'm not saying it won't happen, but the whole, like, the Pirates should trade him. It's not going to happen anytime soon. It would be, like, you're coming into the last year of arbitration or last 2 or something like that.
Well, we love you, Paul. We keep doing your thing, man. Hopefully we can get you some wins sometime soon. Before we keep it moving, a quick reminder that our BettingPros betting systems tool is designed to help you find winning trends and make smarter bets. You can customize your betting systems by sport, bet type, and time frame to find the best opportunities. Using real-time data and expert analysis, you can track your performance of different betting systems over time and optimize your bets to increase your chance of success. Download the BettingPros app today or go to bettingpros.com/systems to elevate your betting strategy and start making smarter bets. Let's move into some of the more favorite future bets here that we have for everyone. And with us now being 80-ish games into the season win total market is certainly heating up. Joe, are there any teams that have maybe a second half schedule it's a bit soft that you can find some value in down the stretch?
More so than just the schedule, and Welsh, I apologize because I don't think you're going to love this one.
I'm with this one. I would have taken it had you not.
Get to the sheet early, baby. The Diamondbacks, I think that they are going to see probably a bit of a tough road here over the next couple months. They've lost Corbin Burns. They may as well have lost Zach Allen, who has been one of the worst pitchers in baseball. Corbin Carroll hurt. Josh Naylor hurt. Suarez likely to be traded. Both closers hurt. This is a team that currently is 500, and I don't see them playing 500 ball the rest of the way. So you can get under 82.5 wins. It's juiced to minus 130, but this is a team I think is going to be a selling team. They're not going to probably want to rush back Corbin Carroll, depending on the severity of that fracture. I've heard that it's probably not too serious, but this is a team that doesn't look like they are going to be playing for much down the stretch, especially in that division. The Dodgers are going to win the division. And then you have the Padres and the Giants, who are also really good, probable playoff teams. I don't see the Diamondbacks. I don't see the Diamondbacks viewing themselves as competitive enough that they won't just start selling off pieces. Combined with the injuries that they have dealt with so far this season, under 82.5, I think that's maybe my favorite bet of the whole show today.
Wow. Okay. Welsh, anyone that you're seeing that maybe has a soft schedule or could be a collapse candidate for after the trade deadline?
I would say number one is still that Diamondbacks one. I completely agree with that. This has just been my trend, and this is probably the last month I can do anything with this team. But the Boston Red Sox, their win
still
total,
there, baby.
I'm still but I'm there because their win total is lower than the Diamondbacks right now, and the writing is on the wall with the Diamondbacks. Zach Allen's gone, Merrill Kelly's gone. Corbin Carroll, they're going to slow. You're probably going to trade one of Eugenio Suarez or Josh Naylor. It's going to just be shells of this team in a massively competitive and tough division. The Red Sox are projected, or at least this number is 2 under. And I know obviously they traded Rafael Devers, which, puts a big wrinkle in a lot of it, but 80.5 is the win total, and you can get it at minus 104. So essentially almost even money. And the reason I like this the most is they are right there still in the wild card. Obviously, this division can't send everybody. The entire wild card can't come out of this, but the Boston Red Sox are 3 games back on the wild card right now. They're an even 22-22 against teams that are 500. They've got a positive road record or home record, and I expect them to be aggressive in the trade market because they're so close. Another starting pitcher, maybe another bat, maybe they circle back on Marcell Ozuna. I don't know what that looks like, but I don't think they're going to just let this go. I don't think I was tempted with the Braves number, by the way. The Braves look like a team that would do it, but it's still a high number. And frankly, they're like 9 games or 11 games back on the wild card right now. It seems like a foregone conclusion that they might sell some pieces, where I think the Red Sox are too close. They've got one of the best pitchers in baseball. Bregman's about to come back. Roman Anthony's getting hot. Like, I think the writing is on the wall that they're going to make some moves. And I think 80.5 is a number that even if they don't make the playoffs, I think they can not make the playoffs and win 84 games. So I'm taking the Red Sox over win total at 80.5 for almost even money.
Something to keep in mind, too, as we're kind of getting into these dog days of summer, especially when the MLB goes to the All-Star break. A lot of these sports books right now are throwing out like any sport profit boost that you can use. I've seen some MLB specific ones and just some any sport ones that I've been putting a lot into the college football futures market or the NFL futures market. So something to consider here if you are wanting to drink a little bit of juice or go with something closer to even money like Welsh is. I think that's a great opportunity to use something like that. I was looking through FanDuel right there as Welsh was talking and seeing maybe if that was something I could get invested with, because I do like this young core the Red Sox are building. Let's move to division winners here. The Detroit Tigers now minus 2,000 to win their division. The Dodgers have now moved back to minus 2,000 to win their division. There's a little bit of hope there that maybe the Padres, maybe the Giants could break through. Minus 340 for Houston, minus 205 for the Yankees out east. Chicago still minus 180. And the Philadelphia Phillies gaining some traction here as well, minus 150. So a lot of movement here since we've last spoken, Joe Orrico, in the division winners market. Is there anything you're seeing out there that is interesting to you?
The Mets are kind of interesting to me because everybody has kind of, maybe written them off as too strong, but doom and gloom is all over New York with how the Mets have been playing recently. And they are now plus money for the division at plus 165, and they're still just 2 games back of the Phillies. For all the horrible things you see written on Mets Twitter, they're 48-37. Yes, they've had a bad month, but this is still a team that is right within reach. The thing that hurts them is that they have dealt with a couple of pitching injuries recently, but they are also a team that is not afraid to spend. They have shown us that, and they will go out and acquire pitching. I don't think anybody is going to deny that they can't go out there in a playoff series and have Paul Blackburn, Frankie Montas, and Blade Tidwell throwing meaningful innings for them. They are going to go out and get a pitcher, whether it's Alcantara, Mitch Keller, whoever it is, maybe even somebody of more impact. They are going to make some moves. So I think they are still right within striking distance of this division. They have a strong back end of the bullpen. They have a really fantastic, at least top half of their lineup. And I think this is a team that could very easily still win this division. Just 2 games back, you're getting them at plus money. I like it a lot.
What about you, Welsh? Anyone that could maybe make some moves at the deadline and their odds would be dropping after that point?
I just want to say that is my favorite. The Mets one is definitely my favorite. Okay. Taking the kind of how we have it on our sheet, where it's like, post June, before the trade deadline. I'm going to throw this one at you because I think the Mets is the one I would bet. If I'm looking for really good odds, I think the Brewers are another one of those that you can take a look at for a division winner. I do think the Cubs are really strong and they're probably going to take this, but the Brewers are 2 games back from them right now. So it's really key when we talk about like pre-deadline, because the Cubs could be hyper aggressive. They have absolutely got the assets to go out, make some big moves offensively. They're killers out there. Like, I think the Cubs could be the sneaky World Series team that you could look at. But if I want to play in this market of anything could happen over the next month, it is the Brewers. The Brewers are going to get Brandon Woodruff back. They've also got some prospect assets that they could maybe go make some moves. I think offensively, it's a really interesting core. Churio get to heat up. You've got Yelich. Bryce Terang has played up. And this division, it's super close. So why not at plus 410 plus 410 for the Brewers, who are 2 games back from the Cubs right now. I think it just makes a lot of sense. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They've got one of the best positive run differentials in the NL. They've got a higher run differential than the New York Mets or the Phillies do in the NL East right now. So the Brewers are not a team to sleep on. I know Pisa Pia really likes them, and at just 4-1, I think the odds are really good.
Yeah, I want to add something real quick about the Brewers. Pardon me, Seth, but in the month of June, they had the 4th best FIP in all of baseball at 354. And then if you go to the batting side, they had the 6th best WRC plus. So they were one of the truly elite teams on both sides of the ball in June.
And one little thing I'll add, if I'm doing my math correctly here, they are only one of, I believe, 2 teams in the NL, or no, I guess this would be 3 teams in the NL that have a positive home, or at least do not have a negative home, road, and versus 500 record. So they at least have an even or positive home record, away record, and versus 500 teams. The Phillies and the Cubs are the other teams. So it's just, just don't sleep on them, and the odds are crazy.
At 4-1, that feels like maybe the best play you guys have noted all day. Honestly, with the pitching improving out there in Milwaukee, I think it could be a great summer for them post-deadline. Guys, let's talk about some teams that can maybe sneak up out of nowhere, Randy Orton, RKO style, and potentially win a division crown for themselves and cash some bettors, some long shot tickets here as well. Welsh, what do you think? Who's someone who's maybe sniffing around right now that could potentially be a dark horse to win their very own division this year?
5.5 jumped up to me, plus 550 for what is, when healthy and rocking, the best rotation from top to bottom with one of the best closers in baseball is the Seattle Mariners. The Seattle Mariners are plus 550. And the reason is because the Houston Astros, they've got a stranglehold right now. They've got 50 wins. They're 6 games up on the Mariners, which is not insurmountable, by the way. But they've obviously got a nice little stranglehold on this. They're 7-3 in their last 10. But the Mariners have got a positive run differential for which feels like the first time in God knows how long. And it's a pitching staff. That's the thing. Their offense is rocking with an MVP candidate like Cal Raleigh. You've got Arozarena. You got Julio going. But then you've got maybe the best closer and the best pitching staff. Those are the things that definitely win in the playoffs. But if you pair that against the Astros team, which has Alvarez, who's hurt, God knows when he comes back. Pena just had a fracture. 2 biggest pieces of this offense are hurt right now. Yes, Cam Smith is kind of banking up. Unless they make some moves, I really think their rotation is susceptible after Hunter Brown. They're going to have to make some plays there. And I think the Mariners are a team that could close that gap. So getting 5.5 to 1 really jumped out to me. If I'm going to make that bet for a team that could fade a little bit with the Astros and their injuries, and the Mariners, just that rotation alone, if Gilbert's right and Kirby's right, looks amazing right now. You just got to watch out. So that would be where I would go.
Joe, what about you? Are there any divisions to you that might be a little bit closer at the end of the day than we're currently thinking?
I think the American League East is a pretty susceptible division right now. The Yankees have kind of cooled off more so than I think we were expecting. We've talked about them on a couple of these shows over the course of the year. I don't think many of us thought the Yankees' lead would just be a game and a half over the division right now, which is currently the Rays in second. But I'm actually going to jump down to the Blue Jays, who are third in the division. They're 2 games back, but getting them at plus 475. Again, shop around for the best line. That does feel like a really solid bet to make, considering how strong the Blue Jays were in June. Offensively, they were a top 10 team. They just got Max Scherzer back. We have to see how his thumb heals up, because yesterday he had a really good start against the Yankees. The Blue Jays are playing the Yankees right now in a massive series. Scherzer was great, but his thumb is a little bit iffy, as it has been for most of the year. But the Blue Jays are positioned as one of the bigger buyers at the deadline. They'll probably add a bat. I think they're going to add a starting pitcher, and I think they'll probably add a bullpen piece as well, whether that is, a David Bednar, Mitch Keller, Brian Reynolds type trade with the Pirates, whether it is going to the Marlins, who are probably going to be shopping. We mentioned earlier that the Diamondbacks are probably going to have some players for sale. I think the Blue Jays are going to be very, very active in this market, and getting them at plus 475, where they're just 2 games back of the Yankees, who haven't been that great for a while. I mean, Aaron Judge went through his struggles. He's back now. He's not something you really need to worry about. But the rest of that lineup just doesn't really scare me all that much. The pitching has been good at the top with Rodon and Fried, but after that, you don't really know what you're getting out of them. The pen has been a bit shaky with Williams earlier in the year. I think he's fine probably, but there are a lot of question marks I have about the Yankees. I'm not sure how this older roster is going to look as the year goes on. We've already seen Paul Goldschmidt essentially turn into a platoon bat at this point. I'm not really sure what the second half looks like for them, but I think they are a little bit vulnerable, and I think the Blue Jays are the team I'd want to be betting on in the AL East.
What about the to make or to miss the playoffs markets, guys? Are there any teams kind of surging down the stretch that might be able to make it into the postseason and give better some current value?
Well, I'm not sure this is they're surging, but go back to my 80.5 over wins for the Red Sox and just say the Red Sox are 3 games back from the wild card right now. They've only got the Angels in front of them, by the way. That's it. And then you've got the Mariners, Blue Jays, and Rays. That is tough to get to. But if I'm going to bank on them being, like a sneaky over on the wins, and they're going to be aggressive in the trade market, and they're getting Alex Bregman back, I think I could kind of jump in there, and they're almost 3-1 right now. So still almost 3-1 for the Red Sox to make the playoffs. There's inherent risk, but that's where I'm going to go.
Joe, what about you? Who do you think is potentially in the mix to make a playoff run late in the season?
So I don't really love this market as a whole, but I think the best play is probably the Giants at plus 130. I think that they're pretty interesting. Still right in the mix. They're a game and a half back of the wild card. Like I mentioned earlier, I think the division is probably a foregone conclusion that it's going to be the Dodgers, but they just went and got Rafael Devers. Buster Posey is not going to sit on his hands. I think that he sees an opportunity, a team that looks pretty good right now, 5 games above 500 with a plus 30 run differential to this point of the season. I think he'll continue to make moves. They have a great two-headed monster at the top of that rotation with Webb and Ray. The pen is a little bit of a question, but I see the Giants as another team that's just going to continue to kind of try and make moves here. Whether they will or not, I'm not sure. And like I said, this isn't my favorite market, but plus money for a surging team, I think it does make sense here. If you are going to bet this, I think the Giants are the best way to go.
Opposite side of the spectrum, then, let's shift to teams that may be in the mix right now that could fall out of playoff contention by the time we get to the fall. Welsh, you first.
So if I happen to have the Red Sox being a team that jumps up, I'm going to have to take someone out. I don't think 4 teams from the AL East are going to be the ones that are going to go in. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to pick on the opposite side of Mr. Joe Orrico here and say it's the Toronto Blue Jays that are going to be the ones that are. They're 2 games up right now. Seattle's like dead even there. But of all the teams, AL and NL, as we record this, that have a playoff spot, so that is divisional winners and wild card, there's only one team with a negative run differential. It's Toronto Blue Jays. That's the only team there. So you've got a red hot Rays team who they're scoring runs. They've got some pitching depth. I think if they want to make some moves, they probably won't. They can. I just don't know how aggressive and what it's going to look like. What is the best move the Blue Jays can do? Bring in Trey Savage from the minors? I don't think that's enough. I think you have to be really aggressive in the trade market. And I think that's where Boston's going to be. The Mariners, I've obviously talked about like how crazy they can be. So I'm going to say that the Blue Jays are the ones that get knocked out. And you're almost getting 2-1 if you make that bet right now, because there's only so many of those AL East teams that can do it. And I'm going to say the only negative run differential offensive side of team is going to be the one that's knocked out in the Blue Jays.
Joe, who do you think is going to fail to go bowling in the postseason?
Well, we're kind of on the opposite ends of this one. I think the Mariners are potentially a team that could struggle just because. And there's a couple of reasons. It's not just because of one thing. So we'll start with the pitching. Last season, they had one of the best pitching staffs we've ever seen. Everybody healthy, everybody doing great. Hasn't been quite the same story this year. Luis Castillo, on the surface, 3.55 ERA, but he's not Luis Castillo of old anymore. Logan Gilbert had the flexor strain earlier in the year. George Kirby missed a bunch of time. Bryce Miller, forget about him. I don't think the pitching is as deep as we might assume it to be. These guys need to really regain that top form. And it is possible. It's certainly possible that they do, probably more likely for Gilbert and Kirby than it is for Castillo. But then when you look at the offensive side of things, it's essentially Cal Raleigh and then everybody else. Randy Arozarena has been pretty solid. J.P. Crawford has been pretty good as well. But, I mean, Julio sitting here slightly above league average, 258 batting average, 109 WRC+. He hasn't been blowing anybody away. It's really been the Cal Raleigh show. And as much as I think that, he's still a good bet for MVP, he's worth wagering on, etc., if he does cool off, if Cal Raleigh all of a sudden goes into a huge slump, which is definitely possible, I think this team could be in a little bit of trouble. While they do have a positive run differential, it's plus 17 for the whole season. It's not it's not crazy. The Blue Jays being negative, yes, is not my favorite, but it's a difference of 20 runs over the course of the season there. So that one I think is really close. I just feel like the Mariners don't have enough of a supporting cast, and I think Welsh alluded to it earlier. They're not a team that's going to go out there and make big moves at the deadline. I think this is the team that they're going to go in to the rest of the season with, and I just don't know if it's quite strong enough. So I would wager that the Mariners probably don't get in, plus 115 on those odds right now. I think it could go either way, and it's another market that's not my favorite to bet, but if I were going to be wagering here, it's going to be the Mariners to miss the playoffs.
Let's talk what everyone wants to know about. World Series winners. The Dodgers still currently the favorite, plus 245. The Yankees all the way down to 6-1. Just a couple months ago, you could get them around 8-9-1. That's since shrunk. The Tigers finally getting the respects of the books as well that they probably deserve, 7-1. The Phillies 8-1 as they're surging, and the Astros plus 950. Orrico, who's the best chalk value right now of those favorites? Sub 10-1 odds.
I think it's the Phillies. I think the Phillies are the most complete team. Their bullpen hasn't been quite what I was expecting it to be this year. They have dealt with injuries and suspensions and all the rest of it. But this is a team that has a solid lineup. They just got Bryce Harper back. More than a solid lineup. That top half is, I would say, pretty elite. Turner, Schwarber, Harper, Bohm, Castellanos is fantastic. Their pitching is an embarrassment of riches. Wheeler, Sanchez, Luzardo, who kind of scared us a while there, but I think he's back. Ranger Suarez has been brilliant. Mick Abel, Andrew Painter on the way. We have a solid back end of the pen here with Kerkering and Strom. Forget about Romano, but I think this is a team that also could potentially make a move or two for a reliever. You don't even really need to factor in Aaron Nola into this equation to think that this team could be good enough to get to the World Series and potentially win it, considering their top end pitching depth and the offensive firepower that they have as well.
What about you, Welsh?
Well, I took the chalk word really specific, and because of that, I can't do anything in the NL besides the Dodgers right now. I just don't think it just doesn't make any sense. The odds aren't good enough, though the Dodgers are susceptible 100%. So I got to move to the AL where I think things are open. And if I'm going to go with this word chalk, how about the Yankees at 7-1? There isn't a Dodgers-like team in the AL right now. And the Yankees at 7-1, knowing what they've got now and what they can have. Assets to trade, absolutely. Do they have some holes? Yes, but Goldschmidt's played amazing. Aaron Judge is Aaron Judge. Max Fried has been an absolute beast. And when right, the combo of Devin Williams and Luke Weaver is absolutely devastating. So it's like, to me, you've got to have the pieces. You got to have the offense, you've got to have the pitching, and you've got to have the bullpen. I think there may be a piece away offensively that they can make a move. I think it's more important to secure one more pitching piece to go with Rodon and Fried. And I think those are really obtainable. So from a chalk standpoint, to get 7-1 on the Yankees, I'm going to take that.
What about for those dirty degens out there? There's someone like a second tier dark horse for you, Welsh, that maybe we should be getting invested in?
Well, let's do this together because Joe put this first. I completely agree with this. I think it's really hard. The AL... Yeah, we're kind of holding hands here. I think the AL, with the same argument that I just made, you could be like, okay, well, start playing some of those dark horses. But it's like the Tigers are another good one, but they're like 8-1. The odds aren't really that great. Going through the dark horse was the Chicago Cubs, and we both picked them because if they are truly going to be as aggressive as being made out in the market, some are saying behind the scenes the Cubs are going to be the most aggressive. If that's the case, and you can bring in a couple because they need pitching. If you can bring in, let's say, 2 big starting pitchers, their offense with Pete Crow and Kyle Tucker, it's near the tippy top. And then maybe you got to get a bullpen piece. Or if you've got like a healthy and working right Ryan Presley and Porter Hodge and Palencia has been decent. Like if you have that, you actually might have the bullpen. So you've got to hyper focus on that pitching. And if they can do that at 13-1, I think they're a really dangerous team to look at, especially if the Dodgers rotation, just can't stay healthy. So I just was in lockstep with Joe. If I was going to make one in the plus 15 type of range, the Cubs were the standout to me.
Joe, you're also smoking that Chicago pack. What are you thinking about the Cubbies here down the stretch?
Yeah, I don't really have too much to add on here. They have a great lineup. I think PCA probably cools off a little bit, but even if he does, still an excellent player all around. The pitching is where they need to add. I totally agree there. If they didn't lose Justin Steele, then this would be a whole different conversation. But Matthew Boyd and Imanaga is probably not quite enough there at the top. I think Jameson Tyone is a lot better than the 4.44 ERA suggests, but they're going to be adding, if we're going to believe any of the reports we've seen, there are going to be a couple of trades made to bring some guys to Chicago. And I think even if they don't make trades, right, this is a team that's 14 games above 500 to this point of the season. There are only 3 teams that have a better record than them. The Dodgers, the Tigers, the Phillies, like they are among the elites, even as currently constructed. And I think considering all the smoke we've heard around some trades being done, we could be looking at the Cubs at the end of the regular season as the team that has the best record in all of baseball.
Fantasy Pros is now live on Twitch since opening day. Joe Pisapia and Chris Welsh, yes, the Welsh. They've been live every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern time for leading off your daily dose of all things baseball, news, notes, bets, and fantasy advice all in one place. Ask questions, get insight, and interact live. Follow us now on twitch.tv/fantasypros and never miss a stream. A bigger lineup of exclusive interactive live content is on the way. All right, guys, let's talk about the MLB trade deadline here in a little rapid fire. Starting with which teams are likely to buy and thus surge in the future betting markets. What are you thinking here, Joe?
So I've already mentioned a couple of them. The Cubs, we've talked about, the Blue Jays, the Mets, the Yankees. These are the teams that are probably going to be looking to add. It's probably pitching when it comes to the Cubs, the Blue Jays, the Mets. The Yankees, I think they could go a couple different ways. They're probably going to look to add a bat and probably some pitching depth as well. But those are the main teams that I think are going to probably see some massive changes in odds between, a week before the deadline and a week after.
Welsh, anyone you can add to that list?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the Mets. I think the bet earlier that Joe talked about is why I like the Mets. I think they're going to be aggressive. I've mentioned the Red Sox. Clearly, I think the win total over. I think they need to be more aggressive than anybody if they're going to keep pace with this division and sell this idea that they didn't sell Devers to be sellouts, that they're going to keep competing and they're getting Bregman back. I'll throw one more. The Reds. The Reds have been just a sneaky team that's kind of looming around. They're third in the wild card race right now, 2.5 games back in the NL. That team, Terry Francona is there to be aggressive. I think they're going to be buyers. They've got pitching. They need bullpen help. I think they could use another kind of leader bat. I think the Reds, and taking it to what your point of this is who are teams that can make trades that can affect the odds. This is why I think the Mets, in what Joe's bet was earlier, why it makes sense. This is why I think the Red Sox in their win total is super low. And the Reds are another one. The Reds, I think, had a higher win total than the Red Sox right now. But if you want to look at making the playoff markets or win totals with the Reds, I think them making trades will absolutely, in fact, impact the future markets for them.
What about the inverse of this? Who's throwing in the towel? Who's saying this isn't our year and potentially going to sell that we should be fading down the stretch here, Welsh?
Number one is the Arizona Diamondbacks of impact. I think there's clear teams that we know. I think the Pirates we know, the Marlins we know. Like, that's not any good news. The White Sox, if Robert at some point. But I don't think that affects any of the markets. I think those were already built into those markets. Sure. The Diamondbacks does not. And this is why Joe's bet from earlier is so smart. 82 wins is still up there. When the Diamondbacks start to sell off, that number should come back down and they're going to have trouble winning games. Orioles, I think that's another clear one. And the sneaky one I've alluded to earlier, how about the Atlanta Braves? The Atlanta Braves, they're just so far back right now. I think the next 3 weeks is absolutely critical for them, but we've also heard rumors of Marcell Ozuna be involved in trades that I don't know if this floated around about like the Chris Sale stuff. I'm not sure they would ever trade Sale. I think the Braves might be a team that sell off a couple pieces to move to next year and not go crazy, but I do think there is the potential that they could sell off a couple pieces knowing they're not competing, and that could have an effect as well on some of the markets.
Who do you think are the biggest sellers come the trade deadline that could shift the markets a little bit, Joe, that we haven't mentioned yet?
So like Welsh mentioned, a lot of them they're not contenders. This would really be if you're looking to bet win totals, but the Pirates, the Marlins, the Diamondbacks, the Orioles, I think the Red Sox potentially as well. I don't know exactly what's going to happen in Boston. It's been a rather hard season to forecast, but if they do go on a bit of a skid over the next couple of weeks, I could see some trades happening. I could see Chapman getting moved. I could see potentially Duran getting moved. And that would probably kill any over win total bets. But that's one we kind of have to just monitor and see over the next couple of weeks. If you're looking to bet it, just monitor day to day how the Red Sox are doing. If they go on a bit of a cold streak here and lose 6 of the next 7, that could really, this time of year, these little streaks can really dictate the future of your franchise. So that'd be one to keep an eye on as well.
What about you here, Welsh? Is there anyone that when we go into the singular player markets, whether that's MVP, Cy Young contenders that you're potentially fading due to their team's shift in movement here down the stretch?
Yeah, so I mean, we've talked a lot about the Mariners on both sides of this. I've obviously talked about the positivity of like, hey, 5.5 to 1. But let me come back to the very first thing I said was if something were to happen to Judge and Cal Raleigh's up there, how is there anybody else? Well, if Cal Raleigh kind of comes back down to earth, Joe, you've also kind of talked about how it's been the Cal Raleigh show. Well, if it stops being the Cal Raleigh show and then they go and, they don't make any moves, let's say, because they've been comfortable. We've got Rosarena. We made our moves last year. Cal Raleigh's holding us up. And then they stand pat and don't make any moves. And Cal Raleigh comes back down to earth a bit, not being this MVP-like candidate. Then I actually think that could affect the Cal Raleigh market and the MVP market for him. So if you're betting that, I think there's some it's a little sustainable or susceptible to if the Mariners as a team keep backtracking and they don't make any moves and sit on their laurels, that I think those odds are going to just really kind of fade away for Cal Raleigh. And that's speculative. He's number 2 in WAR in baseball and stuff. But I think the lack of moves from the Mariners could be the problem.
Joe, anyone that you see in the MVP or Cy Young markets as contenders that their fate could maybe shift when their teams are making moves at the deadline?
Yeah, so this one, I did leading off. I filled in for Welsh a couple days last week, and resident Mets fan Joe Pisapia and I were talking about the potential for Jacob deGrom to maybe be traded at the deadline. And while initially it seemed really far-fetched, the more I've thought about it, the more I don't think it really is, considering where the Rangers are in their trajectory. They've had a bad season. They could still potentially turn things around and make the postseason. But there's also a chance that they don't want to be stuck with Jacob deGrom making $30+ million heading into his age 38 and 39 seasons.
Sure.
Who needs a starting pitcher? The New York Mets do. Where did Jacob deGrom spend the majority of his career and win 2 Cy Youngs? In New York. So that could be a marriage that potentially does make sense. I have been beating the drum all year. Jacob deGrom, Cy Young, Cy Young, Cy Young. If he goes to the National League in a trade, potentially that would obviously kill it. But that's just something that people should be potentially aware of. Not that it's likely, but just as a dark horse, maybe Jacob deGrom does get moved, which would be a hell of a lot of fun.
It'd void your tickets, but then maybe you could jump in and get like 6 to 7 to 1 if deGrom was traded immediately in the NL. Maybe his odds, because remember we talked about like Wheeler and Skeens. Maybe you're still gonna have credit for kind of the season, but then if he really kills it in the second half, he has the potential. So it could be just an interesting thing to think about. At least your ticket would be voided. But yeah, I agree with you there. It's an interesting take too, that the trade could kill this market that you've been kind of excited about.
Yeah, you might be filling in for Joey P on leading off if the Mets make that trade, because he might be partying down in the streets of Brooklyn if that's the case. Let's go ahead. Let's close out the show here. Big long shot bets of the month. These are going to be anywhere from 8 to 1 or longer. Welsh, what do you have for the people in this beautiful month that is July?
So I feel like I've had a pretty good run. I don't remember what my card looked like, but we've had some really good long shot ones that I felt comfortable with. Yeah. And I'm going to throw this one because I think that market is getting kind of quiet. Like it is pretty tough to find. Maybe my Tarik Skubal one would have qualified at 9,000, at plus 9,000, so 90 to 1 for MVP. I think you could put that in this same bank, but I'm going to throw this one at you. Yes, Jacob Wilson has a stranglehold on AL Rookie of the Year.
Indeed.
But it has come with an emptiness as far as like big stats. It's a team that's not really winning. There's not big home run numbers. There's not big stolen base numbers, but there's huge batting average. No denying that. Let's say that comes back down to earth a little bit. How about 40 to 1 on Roman Anthony right now, who has had an early crazy struggle, but he has been hot as can be the last couple of games. We're talking multi-hit games, game winners, and all the things I've laid out. I've done this a couple shows though with the Red Sox that, he's got the full run of play. He's got a full half season in front of him. What if he puts up 20 plus homers and the Red Sox start surging? He is a candidate of all of these guys in the AL that I think could really boost up. Maybe it ends up only being on like a FanDuel where you can buy out of it if the market becomes closer. But the Rookie of the Year award does not have to be done July 1st. And Roman Anthony is here. He's getting red hot, and you're getting crazy odds for the number 1 prospect in baseball. So I think that is something that I'm willing to take a little stab at.
Yeah, I don't mind a sprinkle on that at all. Joe, bring us home your big long shot bet of the month for July.
I don't need to harp on about this one because people probably already know where I'm heading if they know me at all. I'm still interested in betting Jacob deGrom as the Cy Young winner, and people will probably think I'm crazy. And yes, Tarik Skubal does have an absolute stranglehold on this award. I'm not going to deny that. Not even close. Skubal's been brilliant. But we also know that Skubal has a bit of an injury history. Most pitchers have a bit of an injury history.
Like Jacob deGrom.
Absolutely. No question about it. Everybody is always one pitch away. But deGrom also just had the surgery in the offseason to repair his UCL. And generally speaking, you have about 300 to 400 innings after Tommy John where your arm is good to go. We saw it with Verlander a couple of years ago off of his TJ. When he was older than deGrom, had a sub-2 ERA, Cy Young, World Series, had a brilliant year. And we've seen that kind of year from Jacob deGrom. He has a 2.08 ERA and a .88 whip through half a season, 95 innings. He has been outstanding. This one is kind of banking on a Tarik Skubal injury. Not that I want that to happen. I love Tarik Skubal. He is a brilliant pitcher. But if Tarik Skubal were to get injured, I think that there's a good chance the voters would look at Jacob deGrom. This isn't just about statistics. This is also about narratives. And I've said this before, Jacob deGrom coming back after years of not really being able to pitch, if he's able to finish with a sub-2 ERA and a whip that's below .9, he's got 8 wins and 16 starts. He's pacing out for a 16-win season. If deGrom finishes 16 wins, 195 ERA, .9 whip, I think it'd be hard for the voters not to give him the award. Now, if Skubal's healthy and he finishes out continuing doing what he's doing, then he's going to win it. But this is kind of a contingency plan of, if Skubal gets hurt, if Crochet gets hurt, if one of these guys at the top or a couple of them get hurt, in a year, in baseball, nothing makes sense in baseball, right? It would make perfect sense that Jacob deGrom would be one of the only pitchers to stay healthy all year. So this is kind of a crazy one. I know it probably sounds crazy still, but I've been on this since the preseason, and I'm continuing to stay on it at 14-1.
Sticking to your guns, Joe Orrico. That's why I like you. That's why I appreciate always having you on the program. Welsh, you as well. Thanks so much for bringing your analysis to us today. That is going to do it for us today on the Betting Pros podcast. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. As always, the best free way to support us is give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy this type of content. Also, make sure you subscribe if you're new. We're trying to get to 100,000 subscribers. Word on the street is if we get there this year, we will be getting Joe Orrico a Jacob deGrom jersey. So help Joe Orrico, help us, and make sure you're downloading the Betting Pros app and syncing your sportsbooks today. For Chris Welsh and Joe Orrico, I'm Seth Woolcock. Take care, y'all.